Chapter 2 of 2 Years in the Forbidden City. This recording is in the public domain. Recording by J.C. Guan. 2 Years in the Forbidden City by Princess De-Ling. Chapter 2 At the Palace. When we reached the city gates, which were about halfway between our house and the summer palace, they were wide open for us to pass. This quite surprised us, as all gates are closed at 7 o'clock in the evening, and are not opened except on special occasions until daylight. We inquired of the guard why this was, and were told that orders had been given for the gates to be opened for us to pass. The officials who had charge were standing in a double line dressed in full official dress, and saluted us as we passed. It was still quite dark when we had passed through the gate, and I thought of the many experiences of my short life, but this was by far the strangest of them all. I wondered what Her Majesty would be like, and whether she would like me or not. We were told that probably we would be asked to stay at the court, and I thought that if that came to pass, I would possibly be able to influence Her Majesty in favor of reform, and so be of valuable assistance to China. These thoughts made me feel happy, and I made up my mind, then and there, that I would do all I could and use any influence I might have in the future towards the advancement of China and for her welfare. While I was still dreaming of these pleasant prospects, a faint red light appeared on the horizon, heralding the coming of a most perfect day, and so it proved. As the light grew brighter and I could distinguish objects, a very pretty view gradually opened to me, and as we came nearer to the palace, I could see a high red wall which zigzagged from hill to hill and enclosed the palace grounds. The tops of the wall and buildings were covered with yellow and green tiles and made a most dazzling picture in the bright sunlight. Pagodas of different sizes and styles were passed, and when we arrived at the village of Haitian, about 4 li from the palace gates, we were told by the officers we only had a short distance further to go. This was good news, as I began to think we would never get there. This village was quite a pretty country place, of one-story houses, built of brick, which were very neat and clean as are most of the houses in the northern part of China. The children trooped out to see the procession pass, and I heard one remark to another, "Those ladies are going to the palace to become empresses," which amused me very much. Soon after leaving Haitian, we came to a pailou archway, a very beautiful piece of old Chinese architecture and carved work, and from here got our first view of the palace gates, which were about 100 yards ahead. These gates are cut into the solid wall surrounding the palace, and consist of one very large gate in the center and 2 smaller ones on each side. The center gate is only opened when their Majesties pass in and out of the palace. Our chairs were set down in front of the left gate, which was open. Outside of these gates, at a distance of about 500 yards, were 2 buildings where the guards stayed at night. Just as we arrived, I saw a number of officials talking excitedly, and some of them went into the gate, shouting, "Lai la, dao la," have come, have arrived. When we got out of our chairs, we were met by 2 eunuchs of the 4th rank, Crystal Button and Feather. This feather, which is worn by eunuchs of the 4th rank, comes from a bird called the maji, horsefowl, which is found in Sichuan province. They are gray and are dyed black, and are much wider than the peacock feather. These 2 eunuchs were accompanied by 10 small eunuchs carrying yellow silk screens, which they placed around our chairs when we alighted. It appeared that Her Majesty had given orders that these screens, Huang Wai Mo, should be brought to us. This is considered a great honor. They were 10 feet long and 20 feet high, and were held by 2 eunuchs. These 2 eunuchs of high rank were extremely polite, and stood at each side of the gate and invited us to enter. Passing through this gate, we came into a very large paved courtyard about 300 feet square, in which there were a great many small flower beds and old pine trees from which hung all kinds of birds in cages. On the side opposite to the gates we had entered was a red brick wall with 3 gates exactly like the others. On the right and left side were long rows of low buildings, each containing 12 rooms, used as waiting rooms. The courtyard was full of people dressed in official robes of the different ranks, and, after the Chinese fashion, all seemed to be very busy, doing nothing. When they saw us, they stood still and stared. The 2 eunuchs who were showing us the way conducted us to one of these rooms. This room was about 20 feet square, just ordinarily furnished in black wood furniture, with red cloth cushions and silk curtains hanging from the 3 windows. We were not in this room more than 5 minutes when a gorgeously dressed eunuch came and said, "Imperial edict says to invite Yu Tai Tai, Lady Yu, and young ladies to wait in the East Side Palace." On his saying this, the 2 eunuchs who were with us knelt down and replied, yes. Whenever Her Majesty gives an order, it is considered an imperial edict, or command, and all servants are required to kneel when any command is transmitted to them, the same as they would if in Her Majesty's presence. Then they told us to follow them, and we went through another left gate to another courtyard laid out exactly the same as the former, except that the Ren Shou Dian (audience hall) is situated on the north side, and the other buildings were a little larger. The eunuchs showed us into the east side building, which was beautifully furnished with reddish black wood exquisitely carved, the chairs and tables covered with blue satin, and the walls hung with the same material. In different parts of the room were 14 clocks of all sizes and shapes. I know this, for I counted them. In a little while 2 servant girls came and waited on us and told us that Her Majesty was dressing, and that we were to wait a little time. This little time proved to be a matter of more than 2 hours and a half, but as this is considered nothing in China, we did not get impatient. From time to time eunuchs came and brought milk to drink and about 20 or more dishes of various kinds of food, which Her Majesty sent. She also sent us each a gold ring with a large pearl in the center. Later the chief eunuch, Li Lianying, came dressed in his official clothes. He was of the 2nd rank and wore a red button and peacock feather, and was the only eunuch that was ever allowed to wear the peacock feather. He was a very ugly man, very old, and his face was full of wrinkles, but he had beautiful manners, and said that Her Majesty would receive us in a little while, and brought us each a jade ring which she had sent us. We were very much surprised that she should give us such beautiful presents before she had even seen us, and felt most kindly disposed toward her for her generosity. Soon after Li Lianying had gone, 2 court ladies, daughters of Prince Ching, came in and asked the eunuchs who were attending us if we could speak Chinese, which we thought a great joke. I was the first one to speak, and told them of course we could speak our own language, although we knew several others. They were very much surprised, and said, "Oh, how funny! They can talk the language as well as we do." We, in turn, were very much surprised to find such ignorant people in the Imperial Palace, and concluded that their opportunities for acquiring knowledge were very limited. Then they told us Her Majesty was waiting to receive us, and we went immediately. After walking through 3 courtyards very similar to those we had previously passed through, we came to a magnificent building, just one mass of exquisite carving. Large lanterns made of buffalo horns hung all over the veranda, covered with red silk, from which red silk tassels were hanging, and from each of these tassels was suspended a beautiful piece of jade. There were 2 smaller buildings flanking this large one, also one mass of carvings, and hung with lanterns. At the door of the large building we met a lady, dressed the same as Prince Ching's daughters, with the exception that she had a phoenix in the center of her headdress, which distinguished her from the others. This lady came out to meet us, smiling, and shook hands with us in the most approved foreign fashion.